In this age of pandemics, it is my duty to report that there is, in fact, a contagion among us in this very room. Yeah.
Sus.
Capable of spreading from person to person or even from animals to human and vice versa, that affects the nervous system of others within seconds of transmission. That's right. Sorry. It's yawning. So, out of curiosity, how many of you, just by clap or whatever, felt like you needed to yawn or just yawned yourself?
Well,
Nice.
when you started speaking?
Yeah, so it's interesting you say that, because you might be wondering, as we just established that yawns can be contagious like that, you might be wondering, as I'm sure the other people on stage with me right now are, why ever would I incite a room full of people who are here to see us to start compulsively yawning in our faces? Well, at past shows, helpful audience members have indicated that they were very interested in me covering this topic by interrupting me to shout, yawn!
Yep.
So I thought, let's give the people what they want. Let's try to understand what a yawn is, why do we yawn, and sorry again, why they are so contagious. So, what is a yawn scientifically speaking? So a yawn is an involuntary reflex in which we open our mouths real wide, often take a deep breath, and then breathe out. And this usually lasts about 4 to 7 seconds. Now, that could just be a normal breath, but some other features of a yawn stand out. For example, once you start yawning, you are going to finish that motherfucking yawn. And it's really, really challenging to fully mask the effects of a yawn. So one of these pictures, one of these pictures here is a real yawn, and one of them is a fake yawn. Can you all tell which one it is?
I think so.
Which one do you think it is?
I think the top one.
The top one's real, right?
Does everyone else agree? That is correct. So in a lot of these studies, you'll see things like they'll show an image of someone or even a cartoon or computer-generated image that is like making a yawn face, and then they'll have very similar like wide open mouth or like certain parts of your facial muscles like starting to contract in a similar way, but that they use them as controls, but yet we can all readily distinguish between a true yawn and like a fake yawn. And this is really interesting because it means that like our brains, there's something in there that basically is able to detect in someone's face what a yawn is, different from just like a series of of face movements that kind of have the same progression. So I also am just curious before we move on, has anyone ever tried to suppress a yawn while someone is talking to you?
Doing it right now.
Oh, okay, all right. Just like looking you dead in the eyes, and you don't want them to think that you think they're boring you, but you just like lock your jaw and try to just like let it out slow, because I've definitely had that experience. If you haven't had that experience, you should definitely try it, and you're going to get a lot of opportunities to try that tonight. So let me know how that goes. We know that yawning as a behavior is evolutionarily ancient because yawn-like stereotyped patterns of like spontaneously opening the mouth wide accompanied by like a big stretch is ubiquitous in vertebrates. It's thought that the earliest animals to develop it were in like bony fish, basically. So you get it throughout vertebrates. You get it in all kinds of mammals, like you see here. Feel free to let us know if you're yawning. You get it in obviously cats and dogs, koalas. There's a special line of mice, of Sprague-Dawley rats, and they're called the high yawners. And they were basically bred for how often they yawn, and it's about 20 times an hour. So these, I read a lot of papers with these little mice that are just like, yawning at a ridiculously high rate, but not really one that would come across in a video. But it is a lot. Some other ones we have recently evidence that dolphins yawn, even in the absence of like oxygen being around. Shows that this behavior is very. I'm going to show it just one more time. You can see like the sort of like yawn, that sort of like holding it right at the maximum sort of mouth, a little bit of like a body bend into it. You get also sharks yawn. Here's an example of, I think it's a tiger shark. Yawn. Yeah.
It makes literally everything look cute.
Yeah, right?
It really does.
Here is a snake. I hope everyone's cool with snakes, because I just put it up there.
It's a bit late, if at all.
I guess we'd know by now, but this snake is not going to jump out at you. It is going to do a big ol' yawn, at least something that is very, very like that sort of yawn stretch stereotyped behavior that we're talking about being so evolutionarily ancient. And this is where it looks like it really
Maybe not everything is cute.
really hitting the spot right here. Yeah. That looks like it
My
felt
goodness.
amazing. But the sort of question remains, like, even though it is evolutionarily ancient, what are yawns for? Like, an old theory basically was that a yawn is triggered when the brain needs more oxygen. It makes perfect sense. We take a big old breath. That is not true. People have repeatedly and specifically tested that idea. And this is definitely what I thought before reading all these papers about yawning, but it turns out that basically modulating if an experimenter modulates the amount of oxygen or carbon dioxide that someone gets, it does not significantly change yawn frequency at all, and neither did like exercise. So like making them like need more oxygen from whatever. You know how it is. I don't really know a lot about exercise, as you can tell. So it appears that basically yawns work to increase alertness, which is kind of an interesting thing because although you get them when you like first wake up, you also get them when you're going to sleep. So it's kind of, and those don't necessarily prevent sleep. So it's something about like circadian rhythms and sleep pressure might in some circumstances be able to overcome that. But there are a lot of the other times when you sort of feel the need to spontaneously yawn are at times when your body is basically being like, we need to be more alert. So for example, like in the morning or when transitioning between behavioral patterns say, yeah, as I said, when you're waking up, or maybe at times when you're drowsy, times when attentiveness like fluctuates, as well as very interestingly, in anticipation of a very important event. So you'll see a lot of like elite athletes yawning and sort of the wait lead up to like their heat of like the race or whatever. Whatever they're called. I don't know a lot about exercise. And one of the ideas about how this happens is that yawning actually cools down the brain. So basically when you yawn and stretch in this big sort of exaggerated motion, flexing like all these muscles in your face or neck, it increases circulation to move warmer blood away from the brain and cooler blood towards the brain because your brain is producing a lot of heat. So the blood that was on your brain now gets pushed away, and the new one that hasn't been warmed up by your brain comes in. And it even like promotes the flow of cerebrospinal fluid through your ventricles. So interestingly, a recent study found that the bigger your brain, the longer you yawn, which is kind of an interesting thing. They analyzed nearly 1,300 yawns. So this is an example of just some of the species from over 100 species. All these different ones, they found videos. So yeah, it's over 100 species, nearly 1,300 yawns. They did all this analysis of the time. They did all this analysis of how large each of these species' brains are, total neuron number, things like that. And what they found basically was the duration of a yawn for a given species increases with overall brain mass as well as the total neurons. And it also, they accounted for something called like allometry. So it's like as your body gets bigger, your brain tends to get bigger as well, but that did not explain it in
I
itself.
was just going to ask that question.
Go ahead and ask it. Now I got it. We'll cut that part out. So, which is really, really interesting because basically the idea of this paper is that if this is a very important mechanism to cool the brain, the bigger your brain is, the longer you need to do the thing that cools it down to like sort of flush out this warm blood, bring in cooler blood. And just essentially from that, the thinking is that larger brains required more cooling, hence yawns that last longer. So it seems like yawning serves a conserved neurophysiological purpose, which is cooling the brain when you get a little hot-headed, thereby promoting alertness, okay? So now, we have to think about contagious yawns because those are very different. Contagious yawns, by definition, don't happen when you would just ordinarily be having a spontaneous yawn, when the conditions in your warm blood in your brain make you need to yawn to cool it off. These are what happen when you see somebody else yawn, even though you might not be in that exact same state of needing to yawn that they were.
Or even if you keep saying the word yawn.
Yes.
Yes.
Humans, this is interesting. Humans are more likely to yawn after seeing someone yawn, hearing someone yawn, and even when just thinking or reading about yawning. So I yawned so much when I was just sitting at my desk, just aggressively, unrelentingly yawning. I had a real cool brain. But this phenomenon of what's known as like yawn contagion is thought to have evolved basically to synchronize group behavior and potentially to increase group vigilance. So To test this idea that contagious yawning improves vigilance, one study asked human participants to look through like a series of images. Like first they would focus on this point in the middle, and then there would all these pictures around the side. So this is one example of what it would be where everything is frogs. That was their like non-threatening control. But then one of the images would be snakes. And they were like, humans have a long-standing, recurring evolutionary pressure to avoid, or at least detect, so they can avoid snakes. So basically, that's exactly what happened. So recording of this trial, recording using like eye tracking software, this is what the data from that would look something like. If we can move this, here we go. So you start at the center, then you go up and there's like a distractor, which is a non-threatening frog, and then you go over and your eyes like really focus on the very, very threatening snake, okay? So you're basically looking through all these images, trying to find either snakes, which are a potential threat, or frogs, which the authors referred to as a control stimulus. So during each trial, as I said, they were asked to find the frog or snake as quickly as they could after being showed images of people displaying either yawning or non-yawning mouth movements. First off, I think it's really interesting. Snakes were detected more rapidly than frogs across all trials. We are not concerned about frogs at all. And that disrespect provides them with an opportunity to strike in the future. So let's stay vigilant, folks. Interestingly, participants were able to detect snakes more quickly after seeing other people yawn. However, this is a quote, frog detection was unaffected.
My fraud detector is broken.
The take-home message here is essentially this. Because yawns happen when we are less alert, we may have evolved to increase our alertness in response to seeing someone else in our group indicate that they are less alert. Was that a good take-home message? And basically, contagious yawns may be a way to basically amplify that signal, basically to spread awareness of a potential lack of awareness to the rest of the group. And by we, I actually don't just mean humans. So here, contagious yawns have been identified in a number of social species like elephants and chimpanzees. Here's an example of an elephant yawning over in the back, and then a second one getting up, seeing them and yawning as well. And here, yeah, it's
so long.
Yeah, it's big brain, but also pretty big body, so maybe a normal yawn. So here's a series.
Big brain to body ratio as well.
Yeah, true. And so here is a series of pictures in which so it goes left, right, bottom left, bottom right, where you can actually see the reflection, I think, here is a screen that it's being shown, and it's being shown a chimpanzee that is like a video of a chimpanzee yawning. And as the chimpanzee yawns, you can see this chimpanzee yawned as well. So what's really amazing is that humans and other species can trigger contagious yawning in other species. So
confirmed.
Yes. Here's an example of a human yawning and making an elephant yawn. So that's from a paper that looked at this. They unfortunately did not include a video, but left to right, you're seeing human yawn, elephant yawn. Something that we probably all have experienced ourselves is that humans will yawn when exposed to the yawns of other species. Like, we pretty much don't care at all where it comes from. This is a graph where they showed a bunch of humans, pictures of all these different kinds of animals, fish, amphibians, reptiles, birds, mammals, apes, as well as pet animals like dogs and cats. And compared to control, they were all statistically the same. They did not differ from each other, while they were all statistically significant relative to control, yeah.
But again, disconcertingly less responsive to the frogs.
Yes.
Whoa.
Guys, we're sitting ducks up here with these things.
They could strike at any time.
That's
They
a
really
good point.
could. They
That's
really
a good
could.
point. Honestly, that's gonna stay with me. we really need to be on the watch out.
Why are birds so high?
Why are birds so high? I mean, I think this is all kind of in that the confidence interval overlapping. The point is that we for some reason versus control images are very, very powerfully provoked to yawning when we see images of animals going like. So that's a pretty cool phenomenon. Something I found really interesting, actually, as we talk about the pets, is that dogs will yawn when humans yawn, but they don't appear to yawn when other dogs yawn. It's pretty cool. So something about the way that dogs have evolved to be either especially attentive to, which is one of the theories about contagious yawns, or especially emotionally connected to the subject who is yawning, has made them probably, most likely, the only species that experiences interspecies yawn contagion, but not conspecific, which is same species yawn contagion, which is wild stuff, or at least domesticated stuff. Thank you. Appreciate it. I yawned really hard after I wrote that. Lastly, the last thing I want to tell you is I really enjoyed learning that we experience greater susceptibility to contagious yawning when we feel emotionally connected to the person doing the yawning. And I just wanted to say, as we wrap up here, I found this wonderful painting where it's called Wearisome Conversation, Oscar Bloom from 1912, where the caption I saw was this soldier all over on, I guess, your right, is trying to hide the fact that he's yawning and because he doesn't want to be rude to this woman who definitely knows that he's doing that. But what I think the advice that I would give to him, as well as any of you, if you're ever in a situation where you're talking to someone and you start to yawn, don't hide it, let it rip, because you can explain to them that they are not boring. Neuroscientists have just determined that you love them very, very much. Thank you all.
Aww. So sweet.